I want to start with a sound again, and this one is going to disappoint you, because it is almost nothing at all. It is a survey stake. Pink ribbon on it, the cheap plastic kind, and there is just enough wind coming across that field to make it tick against the wood. Tick, tick, tick. That is the whole sound. That is everything happening on that piece of property. I am standing out there on a Tuesday morning in March with a young fella named Cody, 29 years old, and he has just closed on 5 acres. Bare. Not a building on it, not a fence worth the name. One rusted T-post leaning over in the corner like it is tired. There's a little rise on the north end and a wet spot down in the southwest that he has not noticed yet, and he is grinning at me like a man who just got married. And he says, "I've got about $10,000. What do I build first?" And I did not answer him right away, because I have been asked that question maybe 40 times in my life, and I have watched most of those 40 men spend that $10,000, and I would say maybe 6 of them are happy with how they spent it. Not because they bought bad things. Every one of them bought reasonable things. They bought a fence, or a shed, or a tractor, or a load of gravel. And every single one of those is a defensible purchase you could argue for at a feed store table. They spent it in the wrong order. And I have said this before on this channel, but I'm going to say it again because it is the whole spine of what we are doing today. On a piece of raw ground, the order you spend money in matters more than what you spend it on. You can buy all the right things and still end up with a place that fights you every day for 20 years. Because you bought them in the sequence that felt good instead of the sequence that works. I got my barn wrong twice, and I made a video about it, and a whole lot of you were kind enough to tell me about your own bad doors. This one is the other side of that coin. This is me standing on bare dirt with $10,000 and a pencil and telling you exactly where every one of those dollars goes and why it goes there in that order. Now, some housekeeping. And I would take it as a favor if you did not skip it. America is a big country. I am in East Texas. My enemy is water, heat, and humidity, and my ground is a clay that swells up when it is wet and shrinks and cracks when it is dry. If you are in Minnesota, frost depth changes damn near everything about how a post goes in the ground and how a water line gets run. If you are in Arizona, water is not a plumbing question, it is the entire question, and you can throw out half my numbers. The bones of what I am telling you travel just fine. The particulars do not. Second, before you drive one stake, make 2 phone calls. One to your county, one to your insurance agent. What are the setbacks? Is any part of this in a floodplain? Is there an easement across it that the seller mentioned real quick and quiet? Does an agricultural exemption apply? And what do you actually have to do to keep it? Does a structure need a permit? And does putting one up change your taxes? And will your carrier even cover a building you put up yourself? 2 phone calls. I have watched a man tear down a beautiful building because he set it 11 feet off a line that needed 25, and the county did not care one bit how good his framing was. Third, anything holding a roof over your head, your family, or your animals is engineering, not opinion. Trusses, spans, footings, post depth, anchoring. Get somebody qualified in it. And electrical in a farm building around dust and hay and animals is not the place to save $200. Licensed electrician, proper conduit, proper boxes. Barns burn. I have stood in a neighbor's driveway at 2 in the morning and watched one go. And there is nothing to do at that point but keep the trucks back and hope the wind holds. All right, now let me tell you the wrong number, because there is always a wrong number. The wrong number here is, what can I build with $10,000? That is what Cody asked me. That is what I would have asked at 29. And it is wrong in a way that is hard to see because it sounds so practical. Here is why it is wrong. A building is the most visible thing you can buy and one of the easiest things to change later. You can add a lean-to, you can cut in a door, and it will hurt, and I have the receipt, but you can do it. You can pour a floor 5 years after the post went in. What you cannot change later is where the water goes, where the driveway comes in, how deep the pipe is, and what the ground under everything is made of. Those are the decisions that lock. Those are the ones that are still telling you what to do in the year 2050. So the right question is not, what can I build? The right question is this: what can I never undo? And how do I get those things right while they are still cheap? Everything in this video comes out of that one sentence, and it gives you 2 rules that decide the whole order. Rule 1, spend from the bottom up, ground before building. What is under it before what is on it. Nobody has ever walked onto a place and admired a culvert, and every man who has got a bad one thinks about it every time it rains. Rule 2, spend from permanent to temporary. Hardest money on what can never change. Cheapest money on what you can fix on a Saturday with a friend in a cooler. And there is a rule 3 that I did not have at 29, and I will hand to you free. Anytime you have got a machine on the property, get everything done that needs a machine. Every single trip that yellow iron makes out to your place has a fee on it before the bucket ever touches dirt. Mobilization, they call it. I call it the $400 I have paid 6 separate times for work I could have combined into 2. All right, $10,000, bare 5 acres. Here's the order. Step 1, $500. That does not buy you anything you can stand inside of. The first $500 buys no lumber, no wire, no gravel, and no gate. And this is the step people skip. And I skipped it twice on my own place, and I have got the scars to itemize. Here's what it buys. It buys those 2 phone calls, which are free, and it buys the hour of your life it takes to actually make them instead of intending to make them. It buys a plat and a good long look at where your lines really run, because I promise you the fence that is sitting out there now is not on the line. Fences are almost never on the line. Somebody's granddaddy put it where the ground was easy, and it has been the line in everybody's head for 60 years, and it is not the line on paper. If you are going to build anything within spitting distance of a boundary, that is worth knowing before, not after. It buys a bundle of stakes and some ribbon, maybe $30, and this is the part that actually matters. You go out there and you stake it, where the driveway comes in, where the gate goes, where the building sits, all 4 corners, and you stake the door too, where the water goes. And then, and here's the whole trick, you leave those stakes in the ground for a month and you go walk them. Walk them in the morning. Walk them at dusk when you are tired and you're carrying something, because that is when you will actually be using this place. And walk them in the rain, specifically in the rain. A piece of ground tells you the truth about itself in the rain and lies to you every other day of the year. I sited my first barn in about 4 minutes on a dry day and put it in the middle of 150 feet of pasture drainage I could not see. 10 years later, with the lesson already in my pocket, I sited the second one in 20 minutes and put the big door on the end where the driveway is not. And I have paid a fella $80 to pull a delivery truck out of my yard for that mistake. 4 minutes cost me more than $12,000 across 2 buildings. 20 minutes cost me a door I still cannot afford to move. A month of stakes costs $30. Then the rest of that $500. Get somebody who understands your dirt out there for an hour. Where I am, that is a fellow with a dozer who has been working this county for 30 years and can tell you what your clay does. A lot of places you can also call the local conservation office, soil and water district, extension service, whatever it goes by where you are, and get soil information for your parcel for free or near it. Do it. Find out what you're sitting on. Sand drains and holds nothing. Clay holds everything and moves under your slab. Rock means every trench and every post hole just got expensive, and you need to know that before you budget a fence, not while a man is standing there with a broken auger and the meter running. and get a soil test on whatever you intend to grow anything in. $20, $30 usually, because otherwise you will spend 3 years buying fertilizer to fix a problem that is actually a pH problem, and lime would have fixed it for $40 a ton. Running total, $500 spent, $9,500 left. Not one thing built. And if that sounds like a waste to you, go back and add up what my 4 minutes cost me. Step 2, access, $1,800, and it is not options. Now we buy something, and it is the least romantic purchase on this entire list. We are buying the way in. Here's the thing nobody tells you about bare land. Every single dollar you spend for the next 20 years has to physically arrive on that property. Gravel arrives on a truck. Posts arrive on a truck. The concrete arrives on a truck that weighs 66,000 pounds loaded and does not care about your feelings. Hay arrives on a gooseneck driven by a man who has 3 more stops and no patience. If they cannot get in, either they do not come, or they charge you more to come, or they come and they tear a rut in your ground you will be looking at for 5 years. I have watched a man on the other side of this county pour a slab in November and pay a pumper truck an extra $600 because the mixer could not get within 80 feet of the forms. $600 one time because of a driveway that did not exist. He could have graveled half that drive for the same money and had it forever. So here's where the $1,800 goes, and I will tell you it will look different everywhere. First, the culvert and the approach off the county road, if you need one, and most people do. Do not guess at this. Call the county. In a lot of places, the road department has specific rules about the size of pipe, how deep, how wide the apron is, and some of them will set it for you or inspect it. Get that wrong and you have got a ditch that backs up and floods the road, and now it is not your problem anymore. It is the county's problem with your name on it. Second, base material where the truck turns and where the truck stops. Not the whole drive. You are not paving a road. You are putting good rock in the 2 or 3 places where weight sits and weight turns, because that is where ground fails. And listen to me on this, because it is the single most common way to waste money on a driveway. Rock that gets pushed in the mud is gone. It does not stay rock. It sinks, and in 2 years you will look at that spot and swear somebody stole your gravel. And nobody stole it. It is 8 inches down, doing nothing. If the spot is soft, it needs a base course of bigger stone underneath, and it very likely needs fabric under that. And fabric is cheap compared to buying the same load of rock 3 times. Ask locally what they use, because the right answer in sand country is not the right answer in clay country. Third, and this one is free, get the gate placement right. Set the gate back off the road far enough that a truck and trailer can pull completely off the pavement and stop while somebody gets out and opens it. Where I am, that means at least 40 feet, and 50 is better with a gooseneck. If your gate is 10 feet off the road, then every delivery, every visitor, and eventually you at 11 o'clock at night is going to be sitting with the back end of a trailer out in a lane of traffic. That is not a convenience problem. That is how somebody gets hurt. And swing the gate to open into the property, and put it where it can be seen from the road, and hang it on a post set in concrete that is bigger than you think it needs to be, because a gate post is a lever, and the gate is the handle. Now I know what some of you are thinking, because Cody said it out loud to me. He said, "That's $1,800 a driveway. I'd rather have a shed." And I told him, you are going to have both. But if you buy the shed first, you are going to pay to have every piece of that shed carried in by hand. And the fellow who delivers your posts is going to look at your entrance and tell you he will leave them at the road. Access is not a thing you build for yourself. Access is a thing you build for everybody who is ever going to bring you something. Running total, $2,300 spent, $7,700 left. Step 3, water, $2,200, And here's where I have to be honest with you. Water is the one where I have to tell you plain that $10,000 might not be enough to do it the way you want it done. And I would rather say that than sell you a fairy tale. A drilled well where I am, depending on depth and what you hit, runs anywhere from $8,000 to well over $20,000 with pump, pressure tank, and the electrical to make it go. That is the whole budget and then some. In some parts of the country, it is half that. In some parts, it is triple, or the water down there is no good, or you need a permit and a water right and a lawyer. Call 2 local drillers and ask what the wells on your road came in at. They will tell you. They know every hole in the county. So for our $10,000, we are not drilling. Here's what we are doing instead, and it comes in 3 pieces. Piece 1. If there is a rural water line or a meter available at the road, get it set. That is usually the cheapest real water you will ever get on bare land, and the tap fee is a known number you can call and ask about today. Around here, that has run folks anywhere from a few hundred to a couple thousand, depending on the district and how far the line is. Piece 2. Whatever your source is, get 1 frost-proof hydrant set out where the work is going to happen. Not at the road, not at the corner. Out where the animals and the building and the garden are going to be, because a hose is a thing you drag, and a hose is a thing that freezes, and a hose is a thing that gets driven over. And here's the thing about a frost-proof hydrant. It is only frost-proof if it is set right, at the right depth for your area, with a proper drain rock pocket underneath so the water in the barrel actually escapes below the frost line when you shut it off. Set wrong, it is just an expensive faucet that will split the first cold snap, and you will not find out until spring. Ask locally about frost depth. That number is not an opinion. It is published for your county, and it is the difference between a hydrant and a hole in the ground with money in it. Piece 3, and this is the one I want folks to think harder about. Catchment. You are about to put a roof on this place. A roof is a water collection device that most people throw away. 1,000 square feet of roof catches something like 600 gallons off 1 inch of rain. Gutters, a downspout, and a tank is a few $100s, and in a dry August, it is the difference between hauling water in the back of a truck and not. Now check your local rules on rainwater collection before you build it. In most states, it is encouraged, and there may even be a tax exemption. In a few western states, there have historically been restrictions tied to water rights. And if you ever intend to drink any of it, that is a whole different conversation involving filtration and testing, and it is not a conversation to have with a stranger on the internet. Talk to somebody local. But here is the reason water sits at step 3, ahead of every fence and every building. Water decides where everything else goes. You do not put the barn somewhere and then figure out how to get water to it. You figure out where water can reasonably be, and then you put the barn near it. The men I know with the worst layouts all did it in the other order. They built the pretty building on the pretty spot, and then spent 11 years walking water to it in 5-gallon buckets. And buckets are how a man finds out exactly how old he is. Running total, $4,500 spent. $5,500 left, and we still have not built a single thing you could take a photograph of. Hang with me, because that is the whole point, and in the second half I'm going to spend the rest of it, the trench, the fence that is not a perimeter fence, the building, and the $800 I would deliberately not spend at all. All right, $4,500 spent, $5,500 left. And Cody is standing there looking at a driveway and a hydrant and a pile of stakes, and I can see on his face that he does not feel rich anymore. That is normal. That is actually the feeling you are supposed to have at this point, and I want to say something about it before we spend another dime. Bare land has a way of eating money quietly. You will spend $4,000 and take a picture of it, and the picture will look exactly like the day you closed. No building in it. No fence in it, just a field with a truck parked in it. And you will show that picture to your brother-in-law and he will say, "So what'd you get?" And you will not have a good answer. And that is going to gnaw at you. That right there is the pressure that ruins most places. Not lack of money, the need to have something to point at. I have watched more than one fella spend his last $3,000 on a building he did not need yet in a spot he had not thought about because he could not stand another season of having nothing to show. So I am telling you now, ahead of time, so you can recognize the feeling when it comes for you. It is going to come for you in about month 4. Sit with it. It passes. The ground does not care whether you have anything to photograph. Now let us spin the rest. Step 4. $1,100 for a ditch that nobody will ever see. Here is the step that separates the people who did this right from the people who did it twice. While that machine is on your property, the same machine that is doing your driveway and setting your culvert and digging for your hydrant, you are going to have it dig one more thing: a trench. From wherever your power is going to come from, out to wherever your building is going to be, and out to wherever your future stuff is going to be. And into that trench goes conduit. Empty conduit, if that is all you can afford. And a water line alongside it, run at proper depth for your area, with proper separation between the two, and a pull string in the conduit so that in 3 years somebody can pull wire through it without digging up your whole place. Now I want to be careful here. The trench is dirt work, and that is one thing. The wire that eventually goes in it, the panel, the meter loop, the bonding and grounding, that is a licensed electrician, and in most places the utility will not even energize a service that has not been inspected. I am not telling you to wire your own farm. I am telling you to have the ditch ready and the pipe in the ground when the professional shows up. Because the ditch is the part that gets stupid expensive to add later. Let me tell you why I feel so strong about this. On my own place, I told myself the same sentence twice. Get it up, get it dried in, run power later when there's money. Later is the most expensive word in construction. I would like it painted on a sign over the door. That first barn ran on an extension cord for 6 years. 6 years. A cord out the back door of the shop, laying across open ground, run over by a truck, chewed on by something with teeth, unplugged every time somebody at the house wanted to use a weed eater. It was a fire hazard, and I knew it was a fire hazard, and I did it anyway, because it worked. And working is the enemy of fixing. That is a whole sermon, and I will spare you the rest of it. The second barn I did run a proper service to, but I ran it after the walls were closed in, which means surface conduit on everything and an invoice with a line item that may as well have read, "Because you called me late." And then, having spent all that money, I underbuilt it. 2 circuits and 4 outlets in a 30 by 40 building, because standing in an empty barn I honestly could not picture needing more. Then I bought a welder, then a chest freezer, then a fan, then 2 fans, then lights bright enough to actually find a cotter pin on a dark floor at 5 in the evening in December. Every one of those was another call, another minimum charge, another morning of me standing around holding a flashlight for a man half my age. So the rule I paid for twice, and you get free. Run more than you think you need, in conduit, while the machine is already sitting there and the ground is already open. Empty pipe is cheap. Trenching twice is not. And put a couple of extra runs in that ditch going toward where you think the garden and the future pens will be, capped off, with the ends marked with a T-post so you can find them in 2 years when the grass is healed over. And mark it on paper. Draw it. Photograph the open trench with something in the picture for scale. A shovel, a truck tire. Because I promise you that in 6 years, somebody with an auger is going to be standing exactly on top of that line, and the only thing between you and a very bad afternoon is a photograph. Same principle applies to the water line. If you're running one, run a second one, or at minimum a stub with a valve on it toward wherever water might need to be someday. A T and a capped stub is a few dollars in the ditch and several hundred out of it. Running total, $5,600 spent, $4,400 left. Step 5, $1,600 of fence, and it is not the fence you want. Now here's where I'm going to argue with you, because this is the one where everybody fights me. Everybody with 5 bare acres wants to fence the perimeter, wants it bad. It is the thing that makes it feel like yours. You want to stand at the road and see wire running all the way around your line. Run the numbers with me. 5 acre square is about 467 feet on a side. Call it 1,870 feet of perimeter. Even at a modest $2.50 a foot for a decent field fence with braced corners, and around here that is optimistic once you count the corner posts and the gates, you are looking at better than $4,600. That is your whole remaining budget and then some, spent on a line you do not use. Because here's the thing about a perimeter fence. A perimeter fence does not do any work. It does not feed anything, water anything, or contain anything you own on day one. Because on day one, you do not own anything that needs containing. It marks a boundary, and the boundary is already marked on paper at the courthouse, which is the only place it actually counts. So what I would build instead, with $1,600, is one small, correct, working enclosure. A half acre, maybe an acre, right next to where the building is going and right next to the hydrant. Good corner braces. And I mean real H-braces set in concrete, because a fence is a rope, and the corners are what hold the rope, and 90% of bad fence is bad corners. Then decent posts at proper spacing and good wire between them. Small and right beats big and thin, every single time. I would rather have 400 feet of fence that will still be tight in 20 years than 1,900 feet of sagging wire that a determined goat treats as a suggestion. And there is a second reason, and it is the better reason. You do not know yet where your fences want to be. You have owned this place for 4 months. You have not watched a full year on it. You do not know where the water stands in February, or where the shade falls in August, or which corner the neighbor's dogs come through, or what part of that field grows, and what part is just weeds pretending. You do not know whether you are going to end up with 2 calves, or a dozen chickens, or nothing but a garden and a lawn tractor. If you fence the whole perimeter in year 1, you have voted on all of that with your money before you had any information. And a fence is a real hard thing to unbuild. Pulling wire and post is worse work than setting them, and nobody helps you do it twice. Now, 2 exceptions, and they are real ones. 1, if you have got livestock coming or a road on a busy side, then containment is a safety issue and it moves right up the list. And honestly, if animals are arriving before you have got proper fence, then the animals need to arrive later. An animal in the road is a lawsuit, and worse than a lawsuit. 2, if there is a boundary dispute brewing with a neighbor, and you will know because that kind of thing announces itself early, then a surveyed, agreed-on line with a fence on it is money well spent on peace, and I would find it somewhere else in the budget. Otherwise, build a fence that does a job. Leave the pretty line for year 3, and by then you will know exactly where you want it, and you will be right. Running total, $7,200 spent, $2,800 left. Step 6, $2,000 of building, and it is going to be smaller than you want. All right, finally, the thing Cody wanted to start with. $2,000 does not buy a barn. I want to be honest about that up front. $2,000, depending on what you can source and how much of the labor is your own 2 hands, buys you something in the neighborhood of a 12 by 24 pole shelter. Posts in the ground, a roof, 1 or 2 sides closed against the weather that comes at you hardest, and open where you need it open. That is it. That is the building. and I'm going to tell you it is enough, and I'm going to tell you why, and it is not a consolation prize. That first barn of mine cost $4,800 in used pipe, salvaged tin, and about $1,800 of real lumber. It was 24 by 30, and it was open-sided and drafty as a hat rack, and my hat left the property more than once. And it did not have a single one of the problems my $21,000 barn has. It never sweated because the air moved through it. It never held water inside because, well, it did hold water, but that was a siding mistake, and you and I already fixed that back in step 1 with the stakes. The expensive building failed because I built it tight and sealed and clever. The cheap building worked because it was humble and open and honest about what it was. So here's how you spend $2,000 right, and it is 4 things. First, get the posts right. Depth, diameter, spacing, and anchoring against uplift, according to somebody qualified for your snow and wind loads. A roof is a wing. Wind does not push a barn over as often as it picks it up. This is the part where you do not get creative, and it is the part where I would spend an extra $200 without blinking. Second, get the orientation right, and you already know how because you have got a month of stakes and a rain walk behind you. Open side, away from your worst weather. Big opening lined up with how a truck actually approaches, not with how it looks from where you park. Third, build in the ventilation now while there is no roof on it. A ridge vent enclosures, or just honest open eaves and an open side, cost you a couple $100 in material at this moment and nothing at all in labor, because the men are already up there. Cut into a finished roof later, it ran me $3,100 with labor, because it is up-high work on slick metal, and that is no longer a job for a man my age on a ladder. I have said it before, and I will say it here. Tight is not the goal. Dry is the goal. And in a barn, those two things fight each other. Fourth, no floor. Not yet. Dirt floor. Packed, crowned slightly so water runs out and not in, and that is all. I know that hurts, but concrete is the most permanent thing you will ever do short of a house. And it is also the one thing on this whole list you can genuinely add later without tearing anything out. Use the building for a year on dirt, you will learn exactly which end wants to be a shop and which end wants to stay soft. My mistake was pouring wall to wall on a cheap pad, and I have got a crack you can catch a boot toe on and a floor that sweats every March. And I have lived with it for 8 years because I saved $1,200 one Tuesday afternoon. And when you do pour it someday, pour it up, proud of the grade, with the ground falling away from it, vapor barrier under it, and the right thickness and reinforcement for a tractor, which is not a car, and for a loaded trailer parked on one corner all winter, which is a point load. That is a conversation to have with the concrete outfit before the truck backs up. Running total, $9,200 spent, $800 left. The last $800, the one I would not spend. $800 stays in the bank, not as a treat, not as a fund for something fun, as the thing that keeps a small problem from becoming a big one. Because something is going to go wrong in the first year. It always does. A gate post is going to move. A section of the drive is going to pump up mud after the first real wet spell. A hydrant is going to weep. The trench is going to settle and leave a 2-inch swale you have to bring dirt back for. And the difference between a man who fixes those things in the first month and a man who lives with them for a decade is almost never willpower. It is whether there was $800 sitting there when it happened. Every unfixed thing on a farm started out as a small, fixable thing that came up in a month when there was no money. If nothing goes wrong, and it will, but if it does not, then in month 12, you have got $800 toward whatever the year taught you that you actually need, which will not be what you would have guessed in March. I would bet you money on that.
What I would not spend 1 cent on in year 1. Let me be equally clear about the other side of this, because knowing what not to buy is half of it. A tractor. I know I made a whole video about new versus used, but on 5 acres in year 1, you do not have a tractor problem. You have a 3 times a year problem. Hire it. A fellow with a machine and 30 years of experience will do in 4 hours what you would do badly in 2 days, and he will charge you less than 1 payment. Buy the tractor in year 3 when you can say exactly what job you need it for, because that is the only way anybody has ever bought the right one. The perimeter fence. Covered it. Year 3. A house pad. If a house is coming eventually, resist the urge to have the pad pushed up now because the machine is here. A pad that sits for 4 years is a pad that has settled unevenly, grown weeds, and washed on one side, and it will have to be reworked anyway. Get the driveway and the utilities positioned with the house in mind. Do not build the pad. Livestock. This is the hard one, because animals are the reason most folks bought the land. But animals arrive with a schedule attached, and that schedule does not care that your water is not finished. Get the infrastructure done, then get the animals, and talk to a local vet before you buy anything with a heartbeat about what that species actually needs in your climate. Anything sized for the person you plan to become. This is the deepest one. Do not build the 40 by 60 for the operation you might have in 10 years. I would rather have 24 by 36 done properly than 40 by 60 done thin. You can add a lean-to onto a good building for the rest of your life. You cannot add quality onto a bad one. And the thing that costs nothing at all. Now here is the last piece, and it is the one I would go back and give myself if I could only give myself one. Keep a notebook in the truck. Not a plan, not a drawing, a record. Every time something on that place makes you say a word your mother would not care for, write down what it was and the date. Every time you walk the long way around something, put a tally mark. Every time water shows up somewhere you did not expect, write down how much rain it took and where it went. Do it for 1 year. Because I built 2 barns without a list, and I want to be clear, I had plans. Nice drawings for the second one, elevations, a materials takeoff, a number and a spot and a crew. What I never had was 1 sheet of paper that said what happens in this building and how often and by who. And every single mistake I made falls straight out of that missing sheet. The door faces the wrong way because I never wrote down that hay comes in on a gooseneck. The feed room is on the far side because I never counted that I walk to it 700 times a year. The ventilation is wrong because I never wrote down that I keep metal tools in a humid climate. The power is thin because I never wrote down I will probably buy a welder someday, which I absolutely knew about myself the entire time. 10 years of daily evidence did not save me 1 dime because I never bothered to write the evidence down. That is the whole reason this video is called In Exact Order. Because I did not get the order wrong out of ignorance. I got it wrong because the order that feels good, build the thing you can see right now so somebody can drive by and know you are serious, is almost exactly backwards from the order that works. So there it is. 500 on paper and stakes, 1,800 on the way in, 2,200 on water, 1,100 on a ditch nobody will ever see, 1,600 on a fence that does a job instead of a fence that makes a statement, 2,000 on a small, honest, well-ventilated building on a dirt floor, 800 left in the bank, waiting for the thing you do not know about yet. Bottom to top, permanent to temporary, everything the machine touches, done in 1 visit. Cody built it about that way. Not exactly,
He found a better deal on 10 than I ever have, and he put his shelter about 15 feet from where I would have, but close. That was 4 years ago. He has got the perimeter fence now, and he poured half a floor last spring in exactly the spot he did not think he would want it. And the last time I was out there, the thing he said to me was not about the building at all. He said, "You know what I use most? The gate being set back off the road. I don't even think about it." That is what right looks like. Right does not announce itself. Right is the thing you stop noticing. Wrong is a drip on the tractor hood at 7 in the morning in February, and you notice that one every single time. If you have got a bare spot and a number in your head, do not call anybody yet. Go sit at the kitchen table with a piece of paper and write down what happens on that ground. Not what it looks like, what happens on it. How many times a year, by who, and how old that person is going to be. That sheet of paper is worth more than every dollar in this video. I got it wrong twice. You have got no good reason to get it wrong even once. And if you have already done this, if you have got a place you started from bare and there's something you would spend different, put it in the comments. I read every one of them, and I have learned more from other folks' bad driveways than I ever learned from my own good ideas. Y'all take care of each other and go walk your spot in the rain.